Hello, my name is Langston, and I'm back today. I'm going to be talking about the 2024 Senate elections and giving my personal prediction. So, again, I already filled out the safe states for both parties. Some of these states could obviously be likely, but I categorize West Virginia as safe. I don't think that Joe Manchin is going to be able to make it under 15%. This is a state that Donald Trump won by 39 points. I don't see Joe Manchin doing 24 points better than Joe Biden here in 2024. And, Indiana could also be likely, but for right now, I'm just going to categorize it as safe. Minnesota and New Hampshire could be likely as well, but Martin Heinrich and Amy Klobuchar have proven that they're very strong candidates, so I just categorized them as safe. So Republicans already start off with 47 compared to Democrats 40. For the likely states, I'm going to start with the likely Republican states, and I have Missouri, and Florida. So starting off with Missouri, Josh Hawley has proven to be a pretty controversial candidate. And you saw in 2022 where Republicans underperformed in Missouri. And this is something you've seen actually across Missouri. A lot of these working class voters in Missouri are a lot more Democratic down ballot. And with a candidate like Josh Hawley, who would, probably alienate a lot of suburbanites, he's still going to win here by a pretty comfortable margin, but I still expect it to be under 15%. And in Florida, Rick Scott, it's possible for Florida to be lean. I think that people necessarily underestimate Democrats in Florida. I think that Florida is obviously a state Republicans have been benefiting and it's been shifting right. But with strong Democratic turnout, Florida is still a competitive state, and we've seen this for the past decade. But regardless, with how things are happening and with the gains you've seen Republicans make with Cuban voters in particular, and with Rick Scott being more popular amongst older white voters and more suburbanite voters, I do expect them to win by more than Donald Trump, who would most likely going to be Republican nominee for the presidential race in 2024. And for Democrats, the likely states I have for Democrats is going to be Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as well as Maine. So in Maine, this is a state Joe Biden won by about 10 points. But Maine is a lot more Democratic down ballot, obviously. So this could maybe be safe, but for right now, I'm just going to categorize it as likely. In New Jersey, Bob Menendez is not the most popular Democratic incumbent. And if you go back to 2020, Joe Biden barely won New Jersey by 15 points. So it's possible that Joe Biden doesn't even win New Jersey by a safe margin. Most people expect him to. I expect him to, but he only won by about 15.7%. So Bob Menendez is going to underperform Joe Biden, and it's very likely that he probably won't win by more than 15. He could, but for right now, I'm just going to categorize as likely. Joe Biden probably won't win Virginia by more than 15. Um, Obviously, it'll be double digits, probably maybe 12, 13 points. Tim Kaine could win by more than 15. I'm just going to categorize it as likely because we don't know who the nominee would be. Even if it's Glenn Youngkin, it's still going to be more than 5 points. Probably will still be double digits. But regardless, I don't think that Tim Kaine is going to be able to make Virginia more than 15%, even with his appeal to suburban voters um, and college educated voters, and it being more black turnout in the state in a presidential election. In Pennsylvania, Bob Casey is ridiculously popular, and especially with Republicans nominating a candidate like potentially Doug Mastriano, Democrats are going to have a field day in Pennsylvania in 2024, especially when Joe Biden's already expected to probably win Pennsylvania by a few points. A Republican easily be winning, should easily be at least doing better in Pennsylvania, but against someone like Bob Casey, they're going to really struggle. So I don't think Bob Casey will win the state by more than 15, but I do think it would be about, 6 to a 12, 13% margin for Bob Casey. So for the lean states, for Democrats, I'm going to categorize those first. And I have Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan going lean to Democrats. And starting off in Nevada, I want to go back to 2022. And if you look here, you'll see that Catherine Cortez Masto, she only won by a little bit less than a point. And if you go to 2020, Joe Biden won here by more. Catherine Cortez, I mean, Jackie Rosen won by double this in 2018 in her race. But to be fair, in 2022, turnout was very low amongst Hispanic and Latino voters. You saw Republicans dominate because of that. At least the electorate share, it was a more Trump friendly electorate. And um, you saw a lower turnout in the Las Vegas area in general, and that really hurt Democrats. And the fact that Catherine Cortez Masto was able to hold on, and obviously Catherine Cortez Masto is a lot stronger with Hispanic Latino voters in particular than Jackie Rosen, but Jackie Rosen is going to benefit from more than just turning out in a presidential election. And with that, Republicans don't realistically have the chance to really unseat a candidate like Jackie Rosen, considering that with turnout being higher amongst those key demographics, they're not going to make up those margins in the rural areas. In Arizona, right now, it could potentially be a three-way race or just a two-way race. Regardless, it's probably going to be lean Democrat. Right now, the presumptive Democratic nominee is Ruben Gallego. Republicans are unsure who it could be. Most likely will be Jim Lamont, Kerry Lake, or Blake Masters. All three who are pretty weak candidates for Arizona. And even if Kristen Sinema's in the race, she's going to take away votes most so from Republicans because, to be honest, we all know those college educated voters, those suburban voters that still vote Republican. And even though they don't like Donald Trump or they don't like Ron DeSantis or Kerry Lake or Blake Masters, whoever it is, they still vote Republican just because. And like with a candidate like Kristen Sinema on the ballot, a lot of those voters are going to vote for Kristen Sinema instead, while Democratic voters are going to just vote Democrat. It's just how it is. So again, it's possible Democrats vote for more so of a left wing candidate, which you saw with Jill Stein, but they're not going to vote for a libertarian. It's just something, or someone that's a more center right candidate. So it's not going to benefit Republicans to have a third candidate. And even still, Ruben Gallego would be the first Hispanic candidate elected in Arizona. And we saw how much of an impact that had with Hispanic Latino voters in a neighboring state, Nevada, where a lot of these Hispanic Latino voters who voted for Catherine Cortez Masto did not vote for, they did not end up voting down ballot for Steve Sisolak. And obviously, there was other factors that had to play, but a lot of that was just because of representation. We know representation brings voters out to the polls, and Ruben Gallego would be able to inspire a lot of those voters that would not vote just to come out and vote, and that would really help Democrats. And I don't think he's the best candidate for voters in the suburbs, but neither was Katie Hobbs. And she was still able to win Maricopa by the same as Joe Biden. So again, Democrats shouldn't have too much to worry with nominating a more progressive candidate, considering Katie Hobbs was a progressive candidate and she wasn't even strong for Hispanic and Latino voters. So again, Democrats should feel pretty confident there. In Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin is a really electoral powerhouse in the state. She has a lot of appeal to white working class and white rural voters that are, more so in the Trump coalition. And that was something that you saw her do very well in 2018. And I do want to point out that, Republicans did not really fund this candidate. So I definitely think with a more funded Republican, she would not have won by this large of a margin. But Republicans have got smacked in Wisconsin recently. You saw in the Supreme Court race, Republicans got smacked there. You saw this in the 2022 gubernatorial race where Tony Evers was able to triple his 2018 governor's race performance, even though he wasn't even a popular governor. And you saw Mandela Barnes, who was abandoned by Democrats on a national scale, still only come within 1 point of defeating a Republican incumbent. So it's very possible that Tammy Baldwin wins by more than 5 points. But for right now, I'm just going to categorize it as likely. I mean, it's lean because Donald Trump's going to be on the ballot. He's going to inspire a lot of these white rural voters and working class voters to come out. And I do think that with that, I still think Wisconsin will be somewhat competitive. And a lot of these voters are going to shift right regardless. So I still think that Tammy Baldwin is going to do as well there as she did back 2018, obviously. But she's still going to perform better than Joe Biden. And she's going to do really well in the wild counties, which you've seen Democrats really make gains in these Milwaukee suburban counties. It's going to be more turnout from these college voters in Dane County. You've seen them come out big in a Supreme Court race and in a 2022 race. There's going to be a lot more turnout from Black voters in the Milwaukee area. And she's going to just do better in this working class, driftless region of Wisconsin and just across the state. And for Michigan. Michigan is an open race. We're not sure who the candidates are going to be, but Democrats start off with an advantage based off the fact that we know that in presidential elections, it's more turnout from Black voters in the Detroit area. We know that these suburban counties are shifting left, and in down ballot races, the suburbs are a lot more Republican, and we saw this in 2020, where Gary Peters lost Kent County, and he did not win Oakland County by too strong of a margin. But again, he was able to hold his ground with these Black voters in Detroit, and that was more than enough to win Michigan. And you see a lot of these working class counties like Eaton County, Democrats do better amongst working class voters in down ballot races, and that's going to help Democrats in Michigan. I do think that the Democrat probably won't do as well as Joe Biden in the suburbs here, but regardless, they're still probably going to have a pretty sizable advantage. So Democrats should feel very comfortable in their chances in Michigan in 2022. And it's possible that Democrats lose Michigan and Wisconsin, but it's not the most likely. So that's just how I categorize it. For the lean Republican states, I have two, which gives Republicans the Senate in 2024. I have Texas and Ohio going lean. And starting off with Texas, Texas is becoming a lot more Democratic. We saw Donald Trump win the state by 9 and only win it by 5.5. And it's more than likely going to continue shifting left as it's been doing for a decade. And we're seeing a dramatic rise in Hispanic Latino voters and just the Hispanic Latino voter turnout participation. We're seeing a shift amongst Republicans with college educated white voters in the suburbs in Texas. We're seeing reverse migration of urban Black voters moving to Texas. We're seeing the youth vote shift in Texas. We're seeing, a much higher Asian American population in Texas. A lot of things that benefit Democrats in Texas. And I think that that's very promising for Democrats in the future. But as of now, Republicans should feel very confident. And Ted Cruz will probably underperform Donald Trump here, but Donald Trump will still probably win Texas by about 2 to 3 points, maybe 4 points on the high end. And Ted Cruz, I don't see Ted Cruz doing that much worse than him to not win by more than 1 point. And what's crazy is Joe Biden actually did better in the suburbs than Democrats were able to in a blue wave year. So it just lets you know how fast these suburbs are shifting in Texas. And Beto O'Rourke, who had a very poor performance, still did held his ground in these suburban counties in 2022. So these suburbs are shifting massively against Republicans. And Ted Cruz is a perfect candidate to bring those voters out. But Colin Allred, I don't think has the ability to turn out Hispanic Latino voters in the margins necessary to be able to win Texas, in my opinion. Texas just isn't really in reach for Democrats. And I'm not saying the Democrats can't win it, but as of now, I think Republicans should feel very confident in their chances in Texas in 2024, Senate and presidential race. In Ohio, this is a flip with Sherrod Brown losing here. I think Sherrod Brown has a chance of holding on, but I could see Texas being more competitive than Ohio in 2024. Ohio has just shifted so far right in the past couple of election cycles, and mainly because of Republicans making significant gains with the white rural voters and with the white working class. And also with, reverse migration of Black voters in big cities. You're seeing Black voters leave these cities like Cleveland, like Toledo, like Youngstown, and Columbus and Cincinnati, and it's making the state a lot more white and more working class, and it's helping Republicans across the state. And with that, yes, Sherrod Brown is going to do better than Joe Biden with the white working class, but you have to realize this is a state Donald Trump won by 8 both times. He's probably going to win Ohio by 8, on the lowest end, probably maybe 6 or 7. Again, that's really good for down ballot Republicans because you see Joe Biden lost Ohio by 500,000 votes. Sherrod Brown is going to, do better with the white working class. He's probably going to do better in the suburbs, but the suburbs are shifting against Republicans in Ohio and still not enough to shift Ohio left. So again, even with that, Sherrod Brown needs to significantly improve with the white working class. He needs Black turnout to be sky high in Ohio, and he needs these suburbs to really shift against Republicans. And that just doesn't seem like he's going to get all three of those things. He might get one of the three or two of the three, but I don't think he's going to get all three. And even with all three, it might barely be enough to flip Ohio. So when looking at that, I really feel confident that Republicans should really feel really good in their chances in Ohio in 2024. And you see this 500,000 vote deficit. I don't think that's just a deficit you can make up for swing voters. I'm sure that Sherrod will be able to get, 2, maybe 3 400,000 Trump voters to vote for him that voted for Joe Biden. I mean, that voted for Donald Trump, but not 500,000 voters that Joe Biden's going to lose Ohio by. So I don't realistically see him having too much of a chance of voting on here, but I could be wrong and I could see how he could do it. The last thing I want to categorize is Montana, and I give that as being tilt for Democrats. And yes, this is a state that Donald Trump won by 16, but again, this is a state where Democrats have a history of winning by narrow margins, and it's more Democratic down ballot. And with the youth vote, with the abortion vote you recently saw, where even with a moderate Republican, a moderate anti-choice vote, it still failed. And Montana, this was a born alive bill. It wasn't even necessarily a criminalizing abortion bill. So again, it lets you know that even with moderate abortion policies, Montana voters are not in favor of that. And that's going to really help John Tester across the state. And he has a significant appeal to these working class and rural voters that other Democrats necessarily don't have. And you've seen this with Mary Patola in Alaska, where these voters can connect. And for him, he's only working with a state that Donald Trump won by about roughly 100,000 votes. And considering that a lot of those voters aren't even going to vote down ballot, he doesn't have to appeal to as many voters as Sherrod Brown has to be able to win the state. So I think that when looking at the demographics that Montana has to offer, Sherrod Brown should feel very comfortable. I'm not saying that he can't lose, obviously, but as of now, he's proven he can hold on with um, Republicans winning Montana by double digits. He's proven that he's an electoral powerhouse in Montana. And I definitely think Republicans will get close to winning in Montana. But with the youth vote, with a higher turnout from women voters in particular, I definitely think that Montana could be in reach, especially considering that Trump will probably lose ground in Montana in 2024 relative to 2020, even though he'll still win by a pretty convincing margin. So again, that's my 2024 Senate election prediction video. My next video is going to be about the 2020 presidential election prediction. Thank you guys for tuning into this video, and please subscribe to my channel, Military Election Forecasting. And thank you guys, Military Forecasting Elections. And thank you guys so much for tuning into my video. Have a nice day, you guys.